I'll just say that again. When information is in oversupply, knowledge is harder to create. This is why, by the way, I think that the Bill O'Reillys and the Keith Olbermanns and the Rachel Maddows and the Rush Limbaughs of the world have gained in appeal, because they create the impression for their audiences that they are helping them make sense of things. They're putting it in order. They're making things seem less confusing. The president said this, don't worry about it. This is what he wrote. This is all you need to know. And it's very reassuring. It's what I call a journalism of affirmation in many cases, because it helps you affirm the preconceptions that you brought to the show in the first place. I would say they're not, maybe in some cases, sense makers as much as comforters. But sense making is certainly one of the roles that more repertorial journalists aspire to play in a world where the first wave of information has become a commodity that's in oversupply. I mean, that is devalued to the point you can't charge for it. You just walk through an airport and you've got, the news is kind of floated through your head. The third role that journalists of the 21st century aspire to continue to play is to be the watchdog. The metaphor that Lippmann used was to cast a searchlight in the darkness and to shed light on things that we would not otherwise know. Well, now we're not sitting in darkness, because you have all these newsmakers who are shedding light on all kinds of things that they want you to know, but they're keeping other things in darkness that they don't want you to know. So the role of the watchdog journalist is to cast the light on those things, to turn over rocks, to change the dialogue or make a more accurate dialogue than the one that newsmakers can project for themselves. Another one is to be this aggregator. Now, I've written the word smart aggregator here. I'm changing the order of my list. Because when you go to Google News, you can get roughly 2,000 stories on any news event at any given time. I know this because I have a staff and they've counted the links. Many of those stories are the same story. And it's a messy process. I mean, what's the value of going through 2,000 stories about Obama's speech 20 minutes ago? So the role that the traditional press is going to play is to be a smart aggregator. We're going to tell you the best 15 things on the web today to help increase your knowledge about this. Things that are really valuable. Save you time, not simply give you options. And the last two are somewhat more unexpected. This is easy. This is to be a forum leader, to create a place where the public can talk about the news, but hopefully in a guided way so that it's not just ranting and whatever. And this last one here, role model, is a new one on this list that I've just added as I've listened to journalists talk about the fact that they're now interacting with the public, who has a role not only as a consumer of their information, but also as a co-producer of information on their websites. And when people wander into becoming witnesses, to becoming news providers, to shooting video or just sending in photos from their cell phones or whatever, all the other activities, oh my goodness, my speech is over. These citizens are naturally saying, how do I do this? I'm in the role of journalist, well, maybe only for 15 minutes, but I need to know, what am I supposed to do? What are the norms here? How can I go over here and take this picture? Or, if I'm supposed to ask a question at this meeting because there's nobody else here and I want to put it on my blog, how do I do this? And what kind of questions are useful? So they're actually going to news organizations. And sometimes in a passive way, they're simply seeing how the news organization does it and mimicking it. In other cases, in a more proactive way. There's a newspaper in Kansas which has actually teamed up with the local university to start giving classes at night to readers of the newspaper who want to know how to do news gathering, because they're engaging in it on a volunteer basis for their school or for their whatever, often in venues where they're picking up the slack where the local newspaper and other news organizations have abandoned coverage. Perhaps, for instance, maybe the Newport, here in Newport, where I understand the paper no longer has bureaus.